And we're live.
What up? What up?
Hey, we're doing it again, Matt.
Water, water, man.
Okay, we're on the water. See, I saved a little bit of coffee from our first sip program this morning. So, hey, we're getting a little more of each other this morning than we wanted to, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah. Ready to go, man. This is gonna be a good one.
This is going to be good.
This
Thanks
is
so
warm
much.
up. This is the real
Yeah.
deal right here, folks.
That is. So Matt and I have been talking with a lot of facility managers, not only in our jobs. So I work for Waldrop Mechanical, Matt, obviously in the scrap metal man, Matt in the scrap metal business. So we've been talking to facility managers, but since we started doing this, really understanding what it is they go through, the training, the way they have to think. That's been a game changer for me, Matt. To really, folks like Trent McJunkin, who just had a baby, by the way.
Congrats, Trent.
I know, Trent. If you're watching, congratulations. That made me so happy last night. He sent me a picture of him with the newborn son, and it made me think too, Matt. Forming real relationships with folks that we're doing business with, and that's a big deal too. So that's what this program does for us. It allows us to understand the facility management role more clearly. So it's good for facility managers in that way. It's great for salespeople. And then we meet interesting people, and then meeting interesting people and hearing their stories and the things that they've been through. That's beneficial as well, right, man?
Oh yeah. It's been a lot of learning and a lot of personal growth. When I first got on here, I was so nervous,
Yes.
But yeah, no, it's been good. I've loved every minute of it. Some of it, like I said, it get kind of sweaty, but a lot of that's subsided. I'm watching over here who's on LinkedIn and stuff, but it's not like there's 200 people, not yet, at least.
Hey, come on now. We need 200. We want to. I don't know what we'll do with them, but we'll have more fun.
Right.
So if you're out there, we need questions. We can't think of all of the things that even we want to ask. So after these are over, very, very regularly, we say, hey, I wish we would have talked about this. So if you think about that, please speak up. That would be very helpful. And I'm trying to think what else, Matt, before we invite the star of the show in. Anything else?
No, I'm ready to get into this. I got some good questions written down.
Okay. When Metal Man Matt prepares, you better look out, folks. So here we go. So we tried this not too long ago and had some technical issues, but we're very excited to welcome back to Facility Manager Focus, Stormy Friday, founder of the Friday Group, a facility manager consulting firm. And here she is.
Good morning.
Good morning. There she is again. Hey, take two, round two, Stormy. Here we are.
Yep. A charm this time.
I've got a good feeling. I think I'm going to move this overlay 1 second. So I was trying to make things look better. And sometimes when we try to make improvements, it doesn't always work out well. So tell us, we were talking to you, and then did you do some traveling here recently?
We did. We were in the Pacific Northwest. My husband is from an island off the coast of Seattle. And so we try to get out there at least once a year to see people if we can.
Oh, yeah. Actually, my parents are going out to Seattle. They have some friends out that way. So they're getting ready to make a trip out west. Matt, have you ever been out west?
I have not been out west. The furthest west I've been is I've been to Four Corners, I've been to Grand Canyon, and I've been to the Rocky Mountains, but not to the West Coast.
Yeah, it's the Pacific Northwest, and it's God's country out there. It's beautiful. Yeah.
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 Well, that's awesome. So for folks that may not have been with us last time, we'll kind of review some of the things that we talked about previously. So, of course, you started this consulting firm, but can you share with folks where you are now in your career? And then we're going to talk about how you got into it.
Still doing some consulting off and on, not as much as we used to. That's a choice. So after the pandemic, kind of boutique consulting firms were not as much in vogue as they used to be, simply because large corporations and institutions had other things to worry about. But I do a lot of writing, particularly for trade press, and just did a recent article on the challenges and the changes that young people are facing and what they're looking at as alternatives to formal 4-year college education. And I'd like to talk about that a little bit at some point too.
Oh gosh, yes.
It's really important. And so I like to do things like this. This is the way I give back to an industry that over 40 years has been really wonderful to me. So for me, this is fun, and this is what makes it all worthwhile.
Well, we really appreciate you joining us as well, and some of the things that we ask, at least from my standpoint, might be pretty elementary, but I like learning from the because so I'm just kind of getting into this, but I'm getting excited. I'll go ahead and share what I did this weekend, because we all have a facility. We have a facility. It's called our house, the house that we live in, and we've got to manage that facility. And I started kind of thinking about the parallels, and the truth is we have vendors, we have people that come and work on our assets at our house, and we need to keep good records, and we need to make sure we're getting the right service, and there's so many parallels. So we're all facility, just like we're all salespeople, we're all facility managers too. Would you agree, Stormy?
Yes, to a certain extent, we are.
Yeah.
It's a degree of scale, but
Right.
we are. And in the old days, when all of us were just getting accustomed to what facilities management was, we used to talk about that a lot. Think about your own personal real estate and what you have to do to maintain the value and the integrity of that, and just magnify that on a broader scale and a little more
Yeah, it's a
complex.
matter of scale. It's so true.
Yes.
So let's talk about. I thought it was such an interesting story. You were sharing how you got into facility management. So you take us back to Stormy when she was finishing up her education, and kind of how that all played out.
Well, that was a long time ago. And my original ambition was to be in the political arena. I wanted to be the first female governor of Massachusetts, but that's a whole separate story. And so I came to Washington to be a lobbyist, actually, and did that for a while, and then became a management consultant. And then a colleague of mine had gone to work for EPA and called me and asked me if I would come and help reorganize their human resources department, which I did. And then EPA had a new administrator, and she called me into her office and said, I understand you think you're a hotshot consultant, and I have an organization that does a little light dusting. Would you like to go down? They have some issues. Would you like to go down and try and fix it? She said, I call it the facilities department. And I said, okay, I knew nothing about facilities, but it sounded like a challenge. And it was a bit more than light dusting. We had about 3 million square feet of real estate. We had research laboratories, 22 of those. I had 3,000 contractors. I had a huge staff. It was a little bit more than light dusting, but it was a wonderful experience. And we did some amazing things that had not been done before in the facilities world. So
when you walk into a situation like that, I'm just curious. So when you walked in and there's a lot going on here. And so I'm sure that there's been facility managers, maybe like Trent, they've never been a facility manager before, or maybe they're going into a new facility and you've got all of this happening. How do you, I know that it's a long process, but what are your first kind of thoughts on how can I wrap my head around all those laboratories and all that square footage and without being overwhelmed?
Well, and it's funny you would ask that, because I've written a number of articles about, the first 100 days for a new facility manager. And I think one of the most critical things is that you have to get to know your people and get to understand their issues from their perspective. And clearly you do that, and you have an all hands meeting so that they know who you are, because the rumor mill is just rampant. All kinds of things about a new person coming in, and what that person might be bringing, and who's going to get fired, and what's going to happen. And so you have to introduce yourself to the people, give them a little background, a little confidence in the fact that you're going to listen first and learn from them because they're the experts. And then you formulate your strategy, and then you have to communicate that strategy so everyone knows what you want to accomplish in what I call the first 100 days. And you have to have focus groups with your people. You have to have lunch and learn sessions with them so you learn their issues, and you put all of that in the mix. And clearly you have some documentation you have to look at. If you have customer service information, you have to look at that. You have to look at all of your financial information. All of that goes into the formulation of your strategic plan for the organization. And then you have to communicate that and get your team involved. And that's important so that people buy into the process, particularly if you are there for institutional change.
I've got one for you, Stormy. So I like your reference to the first 100 days. That's when the president's elected. Usually the first 100 days are the most critical.
They are.
Let's say I'm a college grad and I'm coming in, and I've read everything in the textbook, a lot of stuff in your textbook. In the first 100 days, I have my 5 initiatives, right? What if the department is complete chaos? What if we have a major HR problem? Do we focus on the HR problems and building the team up and building their skills up, or do we focus on their strategic initiatives first?
Well, and that's a wonderful question. And as a matter of fact, I walked into a situation kind of like that initially, and I think it's a two-pronged effort. The first thing is you have to prioritize. Let's say you've got 5 initiatives, and you need to prioritize those. What's going to be the best for your own organization internally, and that's what's going to be good for your organization to help the business bottom line of the parent organization. But if you walk into an organization where there's chaos, you have to make a decision about how you're going to deal with your personnel issues. And you can't let those fester for too long. It's particularly tough if you're in a public sector environment, where you're not able to fire people immediately or do anything to them. And I often say this laughingly, but it's a fact. I created kind of a turkey farm in my organization where I put a lot of people who really were not producing or doing anything to further the goals of the organization into things that they could work on where they wouldn't do any detriment, because I knew they weren't going to be doing any positive things, but I didn't want them to do harm to the organization. And gradually we were able to deal with those people, and most of them got the message and either retired, or we were able to kind of push them out gently. But you have to create a team where everyone knows what the goals are, where everyone knows what their role is to further those goals, and how you're going to evaluate performance. And that's something that very often new facility managers are reluctant to do. They're reluctant to talk about what the goals and the values and the norms of the organization are going to be, and how people are going to be evaluated against the goals and objectives that have been established. And that's critical because people like to know where they stand. They like to know what the leader has in mind. And most people, if they are productive, want to be part of that goal setting and that business plan. And so I think that's absolutely important, but you can't let your HR problems fester for too long. You have to I always say, you have to make your Z initially and then get out. So people need to know you're serious about that, and that you're only going to deal with performers. And you're only going to deal with people who understand the goals, objectives, where they fit into that overall strategy, what their accomplishments need to be, how you're going to evaluate them, and how you're going to reward those high performers.
Fair expectations.
Yes, absolutely. You have to clarify and set those expectations, because that's also, I think, a huge mistake that new facility managers make. They're so concerned about making sure they're doing everything right that they fail to establish their own game plan, their own initiatives, their own expectations. And people need to know that. The sooner you establish that, the better off you're going to be.
That's a
And
good
that's
point. You got to be on the same page with the general manager or
yes,
the owner too. That's critical.
absolutely.
Yep.
And you have to build that relationship and that rapport, not only with your senior management, so they know what your game plan is and what your goals and objectives are. And they also know how what you're doing fits into the overall plan of the institution. But then your people, you need to always be the interpreter. You have to interpret up and you have to interpret down. And you are kind of the gatekeeper for all of that information as the facility manager. And that's important because people need to rely on you to make sure that you're giving them the right information, you and your management team.
All right. That I love this conversation, and I kind of want to take it back a little bit, starting with the people. The people are what make everything run. In my world, the technicians, the people that actually have their hand on the equipment,
Sure.
knowing their strengths, them knowing that you care about them. And then I think about like folks like Dabo Sweeney and college football coaches. What are they doing? They're recruiting. They're recruiting the best that they can find by painting a vision of the future. Hey, you come to Clemson. This is the kind of program that we run. What we're saying here, this is the kind of facility that we run.
Absolutely.
These are the things that we believe in, right, Stormy?
And you create the culture. The culture is what drives the organization. And the leader at the top establishes the culture. And the culture needs to be inculcated into the facilities organization. And so when you try to recruit, and that's one of the toughest challenges we're facing right now, is recruiting and getting people interested in facility management. But when you recruit, you need to be able to talk about, this is what our culture offers to someone who comes into the organization. These are our values. These are our goals. These are what, we strive for. This is how we evaluate people. This is how we reward people. We strive for a team environment, but we also know that people have to pull their individual weight. And so that's how you create the organization culture.
Absolutely. So it's starting to make me think, Matt, when we start thinking about building culture, I mean, it works everywhere, right? Within a facility, this facility is going to run much better when the culture is good, when the people feel heard, when the people know what we're trying to do, and that communication among. So I think it's relevant to all of us, isn't it?
I remember my career starting, and it has a lot of parallels to facility management, right? I was in hospitality management, Stormy, and I came out of Clemson University, and I probably thought I knew everything. And I walked into the 08 recession, right? Literally, I started in like January, February of 08, and it went into that 08 recession.
Sure.
They told us that we had to do all the things you're talking about, build a team, build a culture. The first job, I was like an assistant housekeeping manager, and we would have anywhere from like 80 people in the off season to like 130 in the season, right? So they told us we had to build a culture, we had to build systems, we had to manage all these different departments, and we also had to do it while cutting the budget, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people out there that haven't seen a recession, right? But it's coming. If it's not here already, it's coming. So the question is how do you do these things? It's one thing when your budget kind of stays the same, right? It's another thing when you have to do it and cut the budget, right? Like you got to get more efficient within the system, right? A lot of these places have had the benefit of these companies making a lot of money How is that going to change, right? When you really start seeing the clamps on the financial side?
Well, yes, there are companies out there that are making money, but I think probably in the last 20 years, I've not heard a facility executive say to me, I have so much money, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
You know,
Good
when
point.
when I started in the business, that's really what was happening. I think facility organizations were what I used to say, fat, dumb, and happy, because they were just dumping money on problems and they weren't actually getting to the root cause of the problems. So I think all of a sudden, when we first experienced those kinds of economic downturns, facility executives had to be much more savvy in terms of how they marketed their priorities to make sure that senior management understood, you know, without a facilities organization, you pretty much wouldn't have a company or an institution.
Mhm.
And I really believe firmly, it's why I wrote a book on it, in marketing for facility professionals, because they hadn't learned how to do that. That was not one of our core functions in the early days. And so when you are, you know, in budget ratcheting down situations, it forces you to rely on your people even more for ideas and suggestions about what works and what doesn't. And I can remember, gosh, I'm thinking back probably 20 years ago, we did a major project for a large university in the Midwest. And they had in-house housekeeping personnel. And nobody had ever interviewed the housekeeping staff. And there were 350 of those people. And we did
Wow.
focus groups at night from 11 until 3 in the morning with the focus group personnel. And they laughed. They said, oh, this consulting firm will never show up. And one night, actually, we all came in our pajamas just to make a point. You know, it was really kind of funny. But some of those people had some of the best ideas about what needed to happen. And when we were able to capture those ideas and put those forward, and tie those to ways that we could actually tighten our belts and do things, work smarter, not harder, they were able to implement some of those things. So I think in the down times, you come out with some of your most innovative and creative ideas. It's why I believe facility organizations need to have brainstorming sessions. Even if you have people working remotely, we've lost a lot of that with remote work, in that we don't get people together to do brainstorming. You know, how can we solve this problem better, more economically, more effectively, with internal and external resources? So we've been through that round once. I don't think too many facility organizations are fat, dumb, and happy again, because we learned a lot. But I think, it's not going to get better before it gets worse. And so I think, we're going to be in some tight situations now. We have been almost since the pandemic, really.
I think there was that one section where during post-pandemic boom that
Yeah, went like this for a bit.
everybody was running around, and it was like that old commercial with the railroad, just keep the lights on, right? So I think
Yeah,
there was a lot of money spent everywhere, and a
yeah.
lot of it in facility management. But yeah, it's going to be this tightening cycle that I could see for a while now.
Well, and because we have a lot of real estate that's not being fully utilized. I mean, big corporations have downsized such that there's real estate out there that people don't know what to do with. And
Right.
I think that's one of the ways that facility organizations can get themselves interjected in the game, is to start thinking about some alternatives and some proposals for what do you do with that real estate? Do you turn it into senior living? Do you turn it into a multi-purpose space? What do you do with it? Do you reconfigure your offices to be much more team-like, so that people come into the office once a week and this is what it looks like? Some companies have built park benches and put shrubs and trees there to make it more friendly when people come into the office. But we need to insert ourselves in that process.
Something like COVID hitting, that really did a lot for, I mean, just as you said that, I mean, facility management, we're thinking a lot about supplies, we're thinking a lot about indoor air quality. that was something that probably that was a lot for facility. And then as y'all were talking about there, getting folks back to the office, that threw a rock in that pool, didn't it, Stormy? The COVID into the facility management and kind of caused some waves.
Well, it did, because when you think about it, not very many facility departments, organizations were able to go completely virtual. I mean, somebody has to be there, even if you have the best and most sophisticated software that you can manage remotely. Somebody's got to be there every once in a while to walk around and make sure things are working effectively. And so many facility organizations were there when nobody else was. And it got to be kind of lonely for a lot of people, I think. And that's kind of sad. That's hard, because we didn't have the connections and the networks that we had. That's one of the things a lot of facility folks have said to me. How do I get name recognition when I don't have any customers anymore? You know, I don't have internal customers because they come in once a month and I don't see them like I used to.
These new challenges, I want to go back to something you said. When we have these new challenges, if we don't have people to talk to, if we're not talking to our people and having those brainstorming sessions, you know, that there's so much good that can come from different perspectives, hearing what people have to say. And so I think that's an excellent point. Matt, did you get a chance to read Vicky's comment? I didn't know if you could summarize what she said there.
Yeah, I was trying to and speak at the same time. I'm not real good at that.
Oh.
I didn't mean to put that. I didn't realize how big that comment was.
There you go.
Yeah. So it says, I love how Stormy said, how are you going to reward high performers? I always say reward the behaviors you want to see more of rather than reprimand what you don't. If you reward what you want to see more of, those people with a natural bend to do will do more. I got those who don't typically engage will want to be rewarded too. So you will begin to get their buy-in too and drive engagement. Yeah, that's okay, Vicky. Hey, I'm glad that you commented. So no apologies necessary.
No, but that's perfect. Sure. And she's absolutely right, because high performers, it can be contagious. You know, if you love what you do and you're doing it well and you understand how to do it, you can infect other people with that same sense of work ethic. And so I think that's important. You know, you really focus on the achievers, and the other people either drop by the wayside or they get on the bandwagon, you know.
So true, you know, and it just applies. This weekend, I was listening to an older video. It's Grant Cardone. He's a sales trainer, but he was talking about attitude and how important attitude is, and how it takes like a choice and work, but how contagious it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a good attitude, then it really helps things so much, even when we're having some issues. So I think now I would also like to talk, Stormy. There's so much, honestly, but I want to talk a little bit about getting why are kids not interested in the trades? Why do we have this problem of getting young people interested in the trades? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
And I think you commented on the article that I wrote last month that was online in FacilitiesNet on this exact issue. What happened in the past was so many parents really felt that their young people had to have a 4-year liberal arts education. But it's costly. We all see what some of the most prestigious colleges have been going through. And so that's not exactly a good look for 4-year
Nope.
academic institutions. And a lot of young people, and I have a personal experience with a young person like that, are beginning to see that there's an opportunity in the skilled trades. And the statistics, I think, are wonderful in that arena, in that more and more young people are considering that. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is that even in an economic downturn, people are always going to need welders, plumbers, HVAC people, and other folks who do know how to make things work and can fix things. So how to put things together, how to fix things. And so there's an opportunity there. The salaries for those kinds of jobs are rising. And so people are making a very good living doing that now. And there are more and more community colleges that are establishing programs where you can do an apprenticeship in the trades at the same time getting an associate's degree. And so for many people, that's an ideal combination. And it means that you can work in the trades while you're getting some academic experience. And if you decide to pursue it, you can keep going. But other than that, the opportunities, I think, are wide open. And all you have to do is listen to Mike Rowe. You know who Mike Rowe is?
Oh, yeah.
Remember the Dirty Jobs guy? I love
Yeah.
him. And every time I talk to people, I ask, does anybody know how I can meet Mike Rowe? Because I'd love to work with him. But he's got the right idea. He has scholarships for the trades that are available. And he wants to encourage people to go into the trades. And I do too, because a liberal arts education is not for everyone. And we are so in need of skilled tradespeople for the future in FM that we really need to establish this pipeline. And so we need to go to almost middle schools at this point and start talking about it. And then, you know, I am working with a young neighbor who helps us here, and that's what he wants to do. And so I'm convincing his family that this is a good thing. I will help him, you know, there are scholarships. I will help him do that. And he's thrilled about it. And he had never thought that was a possibility. So
I love it.
yeah,
I love it.
yeah.
So I want to hit on a couple of things because I think it is important. I think there's folks like me out there. So, you know, I played a lot of sports when I was younger. I spent more time on the basketball court than I did behind a wrench or, you know, looking in a hood or just the trades, right? Looking at HVAC, knowing what motors were and that sort of thing. But what I'm finding, I'm looking now and I'm telling you, it's so interesting, you know, just looking and studying more about things that we didn't do, that I didn't do when I was younger. Matt, I don't know if you're a mechanic or a tradesman or not, but construction and maintenance of all this equipment and stuff like that, it's interesting. And
I am not a tradesman, but now being a homeowner, I'm trying to do, we talked about making things efficient. I was actually working on my house in the last few weekends, putting the aerators in, talking around the windows. So yeah, I'm learning it because it saves you money.
It's never too late, and it certainly is never too early. Your neighbor, I mean, if I'm your neighbor and you're talking to my son, I would be thrilled to death because let's face it, the normal path is highly competitive. You know, I've got a friend, super intelligent guy. He got his HVAC license, you know, learned it really well. He could have done anything, much like Stormy. She could have been a governor and you know, she could have had that path and she did facilities or at least been in that, you know, that level. But he has a fantastic company. He's going to sell that company now at an early age, retire early, and away he goes, you know. I mean, I think that we can get excited about that message. I'm talking to some folks here locally, but I'm excited about it because I'm learning things, you know, and hey, if the kids can learn too, you know, my brother-in-law, my sister married a guy that's really handy. He's fixing things and doing things, and he knows that. And I was jealous, you know, because it as you get older, you realize, hey, you need to know these things. It's going to be very beneficial for you, even if you don't do it for work.
Yeah. And, you know, in the old days, I think back to when I was a practicing facility executive. And one of the things that I used to do was to bring my senior executives from different departments at EPA down to the facilities organization. And we were in the bowels of the building, as most facility organizations are. But, they had never spent time with the HVAC people. They'd never spent time, in the boiler room. They'd never spent time with the cleaning folks. So I used to do walkthrough tours with senior executives, and then we'd have a Q&A, and, we used to have refreshments, but that's how, and my technicians would come out and chat with senior executives, and everybody loved it, and everybody learned something. And that's how you build customer relationships and it's harder now because we don't have as many customers in buildings, but we still have to reach out and educate people, about what these folks do for you and how they make your life not only easier, but they're mandatory. You could not run your business without what we do. And so that's the message,
That's an excellent point. I mean, very often from folks, I always hear they call the facility manager when they're complaining about something.
Sure.
It's like, hey, I'm hot, I'm cold, or whatever the case might be. To your point, hey, there's so much that goes on within a facility that you need to manage to make sure that everything runs smoothly. And we only notice when it's not. We don't notice when it is.
Yeah. And we need to be proactive. I mean, we need to make sure that they know about all the things that we're doing, not, the three most critical issues always used to be too hot, too cold. Where's my parking space? And, when am I going to get my office renovated or painted?
Oh yeah, like this setup.
Yeah. And so you need to make sure that you're proactively dealing with them about things that you're doing for them on a regular basis. And it's more important now that we aren't out walking about like we used to, because we don't have as many customers in offices. It's starting to, move back a little bit that way, but I don't think it's ever going to be like it used to be.
Very good. So here's what I want to talk about now. We've talked about having these conversations, brainstorming, different perspectives. So now I want to kind of carry that thought into the IFMA organization. And for folks that don't know, that's the International Facility Management Association. You played a big part in that, Stormy. And so I would like to talk about what the goals of IFMA are, and things that you've seen within IFMA organizations that have worked, that haven't worked, and why it's important for facility management and something like IFMA to actually work as it's intended.
IFMA originally was designed as the organization to represent facility managers globally, as it turned out, and it became the first organization to create a credentialing system so that people could become certified facility managers. And I really believe in certifications. I really believe in, setting yourself apart. You need to differentiate what skills you bring to the table. And so programs that are offered through IFMA to create a certified facility manager, become a certified facility manager, I think is critical. There are other organizations that do that as well. For many years, I was involved in the BOMI certification process. That was the educational arm of BOMA, the real estate organization, and they have their own certificates and certifications that now you get through BOMA. And then in the recent years, I was involved with ProFM, which was a new certification for facility managers. And I was chairman of the committee for that for many years, and we were going gangbusters. And then sadly, COVID hit, and people just did not have the wherewithal to get involved in the program, and that certification has been put on hold for the time being. But organizations that allow facility professionals to expand their knowledge base, and then to have a piece of paper that says, I am certified to do X, Y, and Z, and I have been through this kind of a program or this kind of training, I think are critical. And, whether or not it's whether or not you want to pursue a technical track or whether or not you want to pursue an executive type management position, you still need to be able to differentiate yourself and say, these are the skills that I have, and this is how I came by those skills. So I think that's really essential. I encourage that, and I really am a strong believer in having all facility professionals expand their knowledge base, and whether it's internal training where the facility organization brings in speakers and organizations to do on the job training, whether you send, professionals to conferences, whether you allow them to do, network kinds of things, be involved in the kinds of things that we're doing here, whatever you can do to promote expanding the knowledge base of your workers. That's how you get people who, A, become committed to the organization, and B, they become much more valuable to the organization.
Wow, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. People like, I'm thinking about Trent McJunkin, who you met last time.
Right.
He had a great job, worked at BMW, big fan of yours, by the way, read all the books. And that's the thing. He read all the books. He wants a great facility. So what is he doing? It's not like he's just sitting there and saying, well, I want to be great. He's going out there and he's looking for everything that he can to expand his knowledge. And that is fun. That means, I don't know, that just makes the vision more real.
Well, and also one of the things, facility professionals tend to get a little insular. So they think that they have to learn only from facility management. And for years, when I used to speak at NFMT and at World Workplace, I would do a session on the best 100 companies to work for. And I always would say that those are the companies that facility professionals should try to emulate, because the concepts are the same, whether it's facility management, whether it's healthcare, whether it's, banking, whatever. The culture is different and the bottom line goals may be a little different, but the way you get there is you want to emulate the best of the best. And so I always encourage facility professionals to think outside their own boxes of facility management. And so, yes, I think you need to read all the facility management books, but I think you also need to see what else is out there. Who are the best companies and what are they doing to become the best? Forbes does it every year. They do the best 100 companies to work for. There are a couple of other organizations that do that as well. I don't know if they're doing it as much as they used to, but it's very important because that's what you want to emulate. You get management techniques, you get HR techniques, you get financial techniques. The best companies are the ones you want to be reading about.
I love that. And that word, insular, I'm not very familiar, but I think I know what that means. And it's so true. So because oftentimes we, even within what we do, say as working for the vendor, working in the HVAC, hey, I want to talk to my competitors. I want to learn about things other than HVAC, because we need to expand and pick up on that peripheral, and then we get much more fuller vision. So we can't stay within our facilities. And I think that's why it's so important, because IFMA, as you probably know, Stormy, around here, IFMA struggles to get facility managers and business folks out of their offices and into a meeting space to talk.
Sure.
Why do you think that is, and what can we do to overcome that?
Well, I think it's been problematic for probably even before COVID. I think we were beginning to have problems. People do not have a tendency to join organizations like they used to and be involved. I'm involved in a couple of philanthropic educational organizations, and we have difficulty getting people involved, even though we give scholarships to people. And so I think you're absolutely right. Vicki just said collective genius. That's what you need to have. And so I think when you have to put on a program that's important. that is of interest to facility professionals. But I also think you need to have workshops and focus groups and talk about what are the current issues and what are the challenges. And those are the kinds of things that, I think people want to be involved in. And a lot of people just simply feel they don't have the time to go to meetings like they used to. That's why these kinds of sessions work so beautifully,
They really do. And as I'm sitting here thinking, I agree with you. Sometimes it just logistically getting out of the office, driving to that location, it's longer than the event itself. And then if it's not a whole lot of value, well, my goodness, I've lost half a day.
Sure.
And so that's what maybe it throws it off. So we're constantly trying to come up with new ideas because we love doing this, right? We bring in, we get those, just what we're talking about. We get that collective genius of different perspectives and learning from each other. So maybe that's the key here. I do want to segue. We got 15 minutes, and there's a few things that I think that while we have you here, I wanted to ask you about. So obviously, we talking to facility managers. One of the big topics so I'll tell you what one facility manager told me that he's going through, and I'd love to hear what your next step would be. So large organization, his folks come in and they start telling him, hey, we've got this big sustainability initiative. We have got to really look at how we can become more efficient. Energy is the focus. We've hired a sustainability person, and this person doesn't know exactly what she's going to do, but she's on your team. Good luck. And so what is it that folks like this should do?
Well, and this is, it's not a pet peeve, but it is sort of.
Okay, yeah, we love pet peeve.
Sustainability is more than just saving the planet and energy efficiency. Sustainability is longevity of organization institutions. Sustainability is making sure that you're paving the way for goals and objectives to be achieved in the future. And so a lot of facility organizations have inherited sustainability people who are not really sure what their goals and objectives are to be. And so I think here again, it's time to have a brainstorming session, get this person in a room or online with your folks and talk about, what does sustainability mean to you? What are the corporate goals for sustainability? Are they trying to achieve a better business bottom line? Most companies and institutions are, so that's understandable. Are they trying to, save the planet and make it better? Okay, what can we do to help that? Are they trying to reduce energy? Okay, let's go out and see what the companies who are the most effective at that are doing. What are the sustainability goals and how can we attack some of those? What is doable and what isn't doable? I think in sustainability, people create these apple pie and motherhood goals that you can never achieve, like we're all going to be driving electric cars in 5 years. Well, good luck.
You mean like zero landfill?
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
People, we live in a world that you have to be realistic and what's doable and what isn't doable. And so I think when it comes to energy efficiency, what is it? Do we have sensors on all of our rooms so that the lights go out when people are not there? And in the restrooms, does it make sense to have towel dispensers that are automatic? Does that save you anything? I mean, what is it and what are the statistics and what are the proven facts and figures on sustainability? What works and what doesn't work without just saying in general, oh, this is a lofty goal. Because sustainability to me is kind of like inclusion. It's this goal up there and nobody really understands it and nobody has really articulated it in the practical sense. And so I think we need to take a step back. If you inherit a sustainability person on your team, let's put that person to work to help us as an FM organization. But first, let's figure out what goals we're talking about. What's important to senior management and what of those things are doable and what isn't doable. And if it's not doable, how do we demonstrate with facts and figures that doesn't make sense?
That's
Yes.
the point. So they actually have a leadership initiative in South Carolina through Sustain SC, and Stormy, they are trying to define what those abilities are, what those roles need to be, and they actually go through a course that lasts a year or so, and they do field trips, you could call them, and they get together like retreats, and they learn about what is the future of sustainability and what is that person's role in the organization. So yeah, it is good.
I think, I mean, we're not all going to be able to save the planet if we just have that as our goal. But what's realistic? We're working on recycling, we've worked on reducing plastics. What are the things, and maybe your company or institution hasn't done as much for that as they possibly can. I don't know, some institutions no longer have food service, at their headquarters. Um, and it has that helped with sustainability by not having utensils and not having paper and plastic products. But what is it that you're trying to accomplish on a corporate basis? Or are you just trying to say that you have a social consciousness?
Yeah.
And you
Right.
can't measure social consciousness. You have to have some goals that you can measure.
That's right. No, that's an excellent point. Getting clarity on exactly what it is that we're trying to achieve. Why are we having this initiative? And then Stormy, what do you think about getting all the information, getting all the data on your organization before you start making decisions? This is just something that I've seen. I'd love to get your opinion on it. You start spending money, I think, to your point, but it's important to know, what do we have, what's taking our energy, where are we at currently before we do anything, right?
That's where you go in and you do your dog and pony to senior management. I mean, most of these initiatives come from up here. And so, what you need to do is to put together your flamboyant PowerPoint presentation on, here's how we view sustainability. Here are the things that are doable. Here are the things that probably aren't going to happen within this organization or institution. Here's some goals we think make sense. Here are the statistics on where we are as an organization with respect to these goals. You tell us whether or not this works with your overall game plan, senior management, senior executives, and tell us which of these you want us to prioritize, and we'll get to work.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. That's the way you game plan and strategize. 8 minutes, and I still have some things here. Okay, so we're a facility manager, and we're making decisions. They have to make a lot of decisions. Oftentimes, it's for vendor services. Maybe it's landscaping, maybe it's HVAC, maybe it's scrap metal. Maybe you've put out a request for a proposal, and you've got 3 competitors. What do when you're consulting with facility managers, how do you help them make good decisions when it comes down to that? We've got 3 quotes and the numbers are everywhere. A good business development person wants to know what Stormy would say here.
We have spent years working with facility organizations, helping them make determinations about strategic sourcing. And often we are on the strategic sourcing team, representing the client, because we can ask the questions that they're afraid to ask very often in terms of asking vendors. But again, here's where I think facility organizations make the mistake. They get a proposal in, they read the proposal, they have questions, and then they have an interview process. They never really ask the hard questions in the interview process, and they don't insist that the vendor bring in the real project team. They bring the marketing director, they bring in a project manager, they might bring in a senior executive, they bring in the dog and pony people. They have no clue about what this project is really all about. And so we always insist that during the interview process, they bring in the team that they are going to propose to be working on your site or with your organization. If they don't have those people, forget it. Because they're just going to pull some people randomly from another project or whatever. So you need to know who you're getting and make sure that they are the experts that you think you're paying for. The other thing you need to do is to take learning journeys. You need to go to the top and the bottom customers that these potential vendors have, and you need to interview their facility folks. You need to walk around their facility. You need to have your clipboard with a checklist of things that are important to you that you want to see from this vendor at another facility. You need to go to at least 3 of them. And you don't want just the facilities that they have wonderful marketing relationships with, or that, you know, they take to Palm Springs every year. You want to go to the facilities where they actually have been there for a while and have project teams working. And you want to walk that facility. You want to talk to the facility executives, and you want to talk to customers. Are the customers happy? Because if the customers aren't happy, forget about it too. And you need to really scrutinize these potential vendors, because it's a wonderful gig if you can get in and razzle dazzle a facility organization and bring in your star performers, but they aren't the people you're going to put on the project. Or you don't take somebody to an actual client, you just give them references. And then you need to make sure that you have in your RFP how you're going to evaluate and how you're going to reward that vendor for high performance and poor performance. And you need to create a rating system. And part of it needs to be customer satisfaction. Part of it needs to be financials. Part of it needs to be, no downtime, if that's important for your organization. Part of it needs to be something about maintainability of the equipment. You need to decide what your benchmarks are and how you're going to evaluate that third-party provider. And it's a lot of work, but you want to build a long-term relationship. And then the other thing that doesn't happen is once a vendor is selected, you need to have what I call investment sessions, where you become partners, partnering sessions. If you really believe that your vendor is a partner, then you need to get them, again, inculcated into the culture of your organization, because they can be the best vendor in the world, but if they don't fit with the culture of the overall company or institution, they're never going to be a success. And so that's important.
I mean, that is fantastic. We can use that information from both sides of the fence, whether you're on the vendor side and regardless of what you're doing. 100% agree. And I love all of that, right? Yeah, I mean, basically what you said is what we do is introduce the technician that's going to have his hands on the equipment.
Oh, yeah.
It's something that I will always do, because that is who you need to have a relationship with. That is who's doing the work.
Yeah, not the senior marketing director.
No, he's got his hair combed and he looks. I love that.
You don't want the fake people. You want the real people. Yeah.
No, what I wanted to say is it's a lot of work, but not as much pain or value or time that's lost from a bad decision. You make a bad decision, it's like somebody being in a relationship. They make the wrong decision in a relationship. They don't want to believe it because nobody wants to make the wrong decision. And so they defend, and it continues to get worse and compound, because nobody, basically organizations, sometimes they just don't want to make the wrong decision.
And one of the things I think facility organizations need to decide, is this going to be a marriage or are you just going to date? And so that's, if you're just going to date and you're willing to, get rid of somebody 5 months into the process or a year into it. But if you're going to have a marriage, that's a long-term relationship. And so there has to be something in it for them too, clearly, because they're in it to make money. And so you have to have incentives for excellent performance, but there also has to be something in the give and take relationship, and you have to build that relationship.
It takes both sides for a good marriage. I love that. I call it exchanging paperwork. We don't want to exchange paperwork. Yeah. I'm here to get married. I mean, if we keep going through customer after customer, year after year, that's not good for anyone. We're never really a partner that helps you do what it is you're hired us for, to help you run the facility more efficiently. Yeah. We get lost on that somehow. I don't know how that happens, but I've loved this conversation, logical conversation about the reality of things from someone that wrote the book on facility management. This has been fantastic, Stormy. And what I would love for you to close us out with is talking to a young person that doesn't know what they want. Maybe you're talking to my son. He's getting ready to graduate and he doesn't know what he wants to do. Why would he might consider the trades or facility management path?
Well, I think the thing to consider when you think of facility management is I've always said that it's like being an orchestra leader. Facility managers have their fingers in every pot around a company or an institution. They get to see what's happening in the finance department, what's happening in the marketing department, what's happening in product development, what's happening on the manufacturing floor, because it's all involving facilities. And so you get to have kind of the best of all worlds by seeing how your company or institution really functions, and you can help that process along by giving them the environment within which to make that business mission happen. And so if you're thinking about, yeah, I really like, I mean, if you like to read a manual and then figure out how to put something together, or if you like to fix something, that's for you. If you want to manage a team of people and be the orchestra leader within the team, you can also do that in facilities. And if you want to be, the top person and have a large organization and interact with senior executives, you can do that too. So there's an opportunity for everyone in facility management. And for years, I don't know if it's still true. I haven't looked recently. But for years, facility professionals were what we called, and it has nothing to do with the environment, tree huggers, because facility professionals stayed with their organizations, the same organizations, longer than any other profession. And so it hasn't been uncommon for a facility professional to be with one organization or one institution for 25, 35 years. And that's a good thing. In most cases, it can be a bad thing because you need to know some other things outside of just your own environment. But there are opportunities there. And particularly if you're kind of undecided, that's a good way to see just how everything works and create a skill on top of it. So I think it's a great place to go. Yeah.
That's right. There's so many things that might grab our attention. Some, like you say, you get to have, if you like, maybe you don't know what you want to do. Facility management is perfect because you get to do everything. That's kind of like me. Maybe I should have been a facility manager. But hey, instead, I'm going to interview him, Stormy, because so whoever that is out there, in a few years, you're going to be on Facility Manager Focus. Stormy, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so glad we got to do this a second time.
Anytime, and I'll come back whenever you want me to.
Well, fantastic. I'm going to pick up on that because I've got a page full of notes. This has been very beneficial for me. And so thank you, Metal Man Matt. A pleasure, my friend.
Yep. Thank you, Stormy.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it tremendously.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See ya.